NEA Big Read is a program of the National Endowment for the Arts in partnership with Arts Midwest. Local sponsorship is provided by the Muskogee County Friends of Libraries.
Hi, I hope you're enjoying reading CIRCE by Madeline Miller as part of the Chattahoochee Valley Library's NEA Big Read celebration. It has provided us plenty of opportunities to discuss some of Western culture's foundational myths, including the Odyssey, and we've been able to examine our society's reaction to those myths as well. Now, Miss Miller's retelling, the enchantress who makes a brief appearance in Odysseus' story, Circe, she becomes the center of her own heroic journey. Now, this focus on the female protagonist, especially in classic myths where the male is usually at the center of the story, has become increasingly popular in the last 30 to 40 years. Many of these stories, including Miss Miller's Circe, has been based on a philosophical and structural model called the heroine's journey. Now, this was first used in psychology as a method of self-help by Jungian psychologist Maureen Murdoch. It has now become one of the core methods of structuring modern stories for film, or for literature, really for any method of storytelling. So today, I'm joined by my colleague Shannon Smith, and we're going to discuss how the heroine's journey came to be, what it is, and how it's used by some of our most celebrated artists and content creators. And to understand the heroine's journey, you have to understand its source of inspiration, the hero's journey.
Most of us are familiar with Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces, even if we haven't read the book. The titular hero is in many of our classic and modern narratives, but the heroine's journey is lesser known. Famously, when Maureen Murdoch, a student of Campbell's, asked him about women in the hero's journey, he responded, "Women don't need to make the journey." In the whole mythological tradition, the woman is already there. All she has to do is realize that she's the place people are trying to get to. Dissatisfied with such a dismissive answer, Murdoch set out to make her own feminist take on Campbell's work, called The Heroine's Journey. As an accomplished psychoanalyst, she developed a pattern for a woman's quest for wholeness, which we see in many of our modern narratives, in books, movies, TV shows, that center around a female lead. For example, Wonder Woman and even Brave.
The concept of a template for mythological stories first became popular in the late 1800s, but it really was famed professor Joseph Campbell who, in his 1949 classic, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, first described the various stages of the monomyth, the narrative pattern used by storytellers throughout the millennia. Campbell broke the pattern of the monomyth into 17 stages. Not all stories have all 17 stages, and sometimes the stages are rearranged. But generally, they're organized around 3 parts or 3 acts: the departure, the initiation, and the return. Now, other writers have used this concept to come up with their own organization of the structure. Most notable of these is probably Hollywood executive and screenwriter Christopher Vogler with his 2007 list, and that list is commonly used in screenwriting courses today. Vogler's organization of Campbell's original list includes 12 steps, organized into those 3 separate acts. In Act 1, the departure, there are these 5 stages. First is the ordinary world. This is where we see the hero's normal life before the adventure begins. Second is the call to adventure, where the hero faces an event or conflict that compels them on the adventure. Third is the refusal of the call, where hesitation or fear or any number of other issues cause our hero to refuse the adventure. Fourth is meeting the mentor. A mentor emerges to give the hero advice, information, wisdom, and sometimes important items that the hero might need for the adventure. Fifth, and the last stage of Act 1 is crossing the threshold. Our hero leaves their ordinary world for the first time, crossing the threshold to adventure. This brings us to Act 2, the initiation, and in Vogler's organization, this comprises 4 stages. 6 is tests, allies, and enemies. Our hero learns the rules of the new world, who to trust and who to fight. 7 is the approach. The initial plan to address the central conflict begins, but setbacks occur, forcing our hero into alternate solutions. 8 is the ordeal. As the initial plan falters, additional conflicts are added. Our hero faces obstacles that literally could be life-altering or life-ending. And the final stage of Act 2 is the reward. After surviving the ordeal, the hero receives a reward that they have earned. This could be a sword, perhaps, or a spell, or an additional piece of wisdom. So the final act is entitled The Return, and it has the final 3 stages. Stage 10 is the road back. Our hero sees the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel, but they have their ultimate challenge facing them. Stage 11 is the resurrection. This is the climax of the story or the myth. It's the final test where the hero must use everything he has learned and achieved and gathered to achieve victory. And the final step is the return. Our hero brings his new knowledge or his new solutions or his new elixirs, his new wisdom back to his ordinary world. So this is one form of what we call the hero's journey. I'm going to have Shannon. She's going to tell us about how the heroine's journey is different.
1. Heroine separates from the feminine. The feminine is often a mother figure, or societally prescribed feminine, outsider, or marginalized role. 2. Identification with the masculine and gathering of allies. The heroine embraces a new way of life. This often involves choosing a path that is different from the heroine's prescribed societal role, gearing up for a fight with an organization or a group that is limiting the heroine's options, or entering some kind of masculine dominant identity-defined sphere. 3. Road and meeting ogres and dragons. The heroine encounters trials and meets people who try to dissuade the heroine from pursuing her chosen path. 4. Experiencing a boon of success. The heroine overcomes the obstacles in their way. 5. Heroine awakens to feelings of spiritual ardity. The heroine's new way of life is too limited. Their success in this new way of life is either temporary, illusionary, shadow, or requires a betrayal of self. 6. Initiation or descent. The heroine faces a crisis of some sort and a new way of life is insufficient, and the heroine falls into despair. All of the masculine dominant group strategies have failed them. 7. Heroine urgently yearns to reconnect with the feminine. The heroine wants to, but is unable to return to their initial state. 8. Heroine heals the mother-daughter split. The heroine reclaims some of their initial skills or attributes, but now views the traits from a new perspective. 9. Heroine heals the wounded masculine within. The heroine makes peace with the masculine approach to the world as it applies to them. And 10. Heroine integrates the masculine and the feminine. In order to face the world with a new understanding of themselves and the world, the heroine integrates the masculine and feminine qualities.
So yes, there are some similarities between the hero and the heroine's journey, but there's also very important differences. One thing we should point out, the hero's journey is not exclusively male, nor is the heroine's journey exclusively female. You'll see male and female protagonists in both story structures. So we're going to apply those frameworks to the movie series most closely associated with Joseph Campbell's philosophy. And that, of course, is the Star Wars saga. Creator George Lucas famously consulted with Campbell when he was writing the first episodes of the series that were focused on Luke Skywalker. And he wrote those first story treatments closely following the monomyth pattern. So here is how the pattern plays out in the first released film, Star Wars: A New Hope. Oh, yep, spoiler alert, if you really haven't seen Star Wars and you don't want to know the ending, turn away now. Really? You haven't seen Star Wars? Really? Okay, you've been warned. So here's how the first film plays out according to the hero's journey. Act 1, The Departure. An evil empire rules the galaxy while a young Luke Skywalker dreams of joining the Flight Academy. Unfortunately, he is stuck on his uncle's remote farm. An old robot plays an urgent message from Leia, a princess, and Luke wants to help her but doesn't know how. Despite encouragement from the local outcast Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke refuses to leave his aunt and uncle who need him to tend the farm. The old robot R2-D2 replays the entire message, and Luke discovers it holds the plans of the Death Star, the frightening new battleship of the evil empire. Obi-Wan gives Luke his father's lightsaber and tells him of his heritage. He's the son of a Jedi warrior. Luke's aunt and uncle are killed by the Empire soldiers, so he joins with Obi-Wan to deliver the Death Star plans to the Rebel Alliance fighting the Empire. Act 2, the initiation. Obi-Wan first uses the Force, the mystical source of strength, to save him and Luke from the stormtroopers. The two hire Han Solo and Chewbacca for transport, and they soon become their allies. Using their collective skills, they escape the Imperial stormtroopers. Luke learns more about the Force from his mentor Obi-Wan, but the ship is captured by the Death Star, and they are imprisoned by the evil Empire. On the Death Star, they overpower stormtroopers, taking their uniforms for disguise. They also discover Princess Leia and attempt to rescue her, but are caught again by the stormtroopers. The group is thrown into a trash compactor and Luke is pulled under by a creature. Instead of working individually, they work together to exit both the compactor and ultimately the Death Star. Act 3, the return. Obi-Wan sacrifices himself to Imperial leader Darth Vader to allow the team to escape. They journey to the Rebel Alliance with the Death Star plans. Luke fully joins the Alliance, piloting a ship to attack the Death Star. In the final battle, Luke hears the advice of Obi-Wan and uses the Force to direct his aim. His improbable shot destroys the Death Star. The power of the evil empire is destroyed. Luke, Han, Leia, and Chewbacca are honored as heroes, as peace is restored to the galaxy. Now, Shannon will take you through a brief rundown of the heroine of the final 3 films of the Star Wars saga, featuring the character Rey, as well as a couple of other films that fit the heroine's journey paradigm.
Rey from the new Star Wars sequel trilogy finds herself in Murdoch's heroine's journey. She takes on the masculine role, scavenging, goes on an adventure in the Millennium Falcon, feels successful in her acquisition of a lightsaber, only to then be captured, to free herself, meet Leia, who went on a journey before her, and make peace with her Jedi destiny and embark on a quest to find a teacher. The Hunger Games is another piece of fiction that visits Murdoch's heroine's journey. The novel trilogy begins with the heroine's separation from the feminine, as Katniss is forced into battle, facing many trials, and then the trilogy ends with Katniss getting married and having children, which can be seen as a reconnection to the feminine. Katniss's journey, therefore, has a repeating and cyclical pattern inspired by Murdoch. She-Ra is yet another popular example, as is Princess Merida from Disney and Pixar's movie Brave. Both heroines disregard traditional female stereotypes, embark on empowering journeys, and grow as people. The heroine's journey isn't limited to children's media as well. Both The Silence of the Lambs and The English Patient incorporate it into its story beats. In the end, examples of the heroine's journey can be found everywhere in our media.
Thank you, Shannon. So you can see that both the hero's journey and the heroine's journey play a prominent role in modern storytelling. Now, females can be at the center of these stories. This goes all the way back to Medea and Antigone, after all. But these journey paradigms give us different approaches to telling their stories, and different ways for us readers or viewers to analyze and more deeply appreciate these stories. Now let's take the 3 from the title of this program. Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz is the quintessential heroine's journey, a young woman trying to navigate a strange world into which she's been thrust in an attempt to simply return to her Auntie Em and go home. Let's take the heroines of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is a world that it's traditionally well in the realm of the hero's journey. But in 2019, they released Captain Marvel, and they recast that role as a female, Carol Danvers. They had her take on a search for identity and overcoming the deceit of those with whom she served. In this Captain Marvel, the action of the story lines up actually pretty well with the classic 12-step approach to the hero's journey. But the real focus of the story is the emotional arc by Miss Danvers. And the emotional beats of that story, with the ultimate goal of Danvers reconciling who she is, those are drawn very specifically from the heroine's journey. This brings us to Princess Leia, a modern heroine for our times. Now, if you're going to check out the many fan posts on the web about this subject, you'll find that most of those see her story as the hero's journey, not the heroine's. Now, this is especially if you see her character over the course of the 9-film saga. You'll see that it is her actions that actually serve as the driving force of the story arc, that compel the action. This is especially true in the final 3 films. She has her own call to adventures, her own thresholds, her own ordeals and rewards, and this happens throughout the films, even though each trilogy is not focused on her specifically. She is definitely a person of action, and this was so important in the 70s when this story form really did not contain such female icons. That is why she is such a beloved character today. The heroine's journey and the hero's journey. They are 2 fantastic ways to look at your favorite books and movies. If you want more information, our website is the place to go, cvlga.org. I thank you for joining me today as a part of your own heroic journey, and I hope you have a great day.